Medical professionals of Reddit. What's the funniest thing a patient has said under anesthesia? Yelling for his brother, then whispering loudly to him, check to see if I still have my DCK. I think they took my dick, then proceeded to flash the whole room. Edit. For those asking, the procedure was to remove a benign tumor in his cheek. Face cheek, not butt cheek. Better safe than sorry. Exactly. If the D thief is still around, you might still have a chance. You never know when he's gonna strike again. The dreaded pecker snatcher was recovering a patient after surgery who got ketamine, which has an own side effect of making you super emotional. When she woke up, she started catcalling me, telling me how attractive I was. Then she got worked up because she was thirsty, so I told her I could get her ice chips. As I'm getting her ice chips, she starts to go, I hate to see you leave, but I love to see you go. As I disappear to get her some ice chips, she starts crying real tears that she scared me off and how sorry she was. Way to go. Heartbreaker. The Heartbreak Kid. Shawn Michaels. Keep that patient away from windows. She might pull a Marty Jannetty. I apparently can't handle my anesthesia. The first time I woke up, I asked the nurse if I was going to be able to fight by Monday. My wife properly translated that to, can he teach his wrestling class before we went home. She wanted to drop off my prescriptions at CVS. She left me locked in the running car. After she dropped off the prescription, she turned around to find me in the CVS standing in the frozen dairy section holding German chocolate ice cream. I told her I needed it because my people made it. Car was still running with the passenger door left open. This cracked me up. Straight out of sitcom lore. 18-year-old girl recognized a male anesthesiologist from Tinder last week and accused him multiple times of not showing up to their agreed date while randomly falling half asleep in between. As we put her back in bed, she mumbled that she is not even mad, just generally disappointed in men, and that she still thinks he's pretty. Literally one of my worst nightmares. To be the girl or the anesthesiologist? Yes. I just had a bowel resection and was hopped up on morphine. My divorced parents hadn't sat in a room that long together in forever. My sister, uncomfortably quiet between them, tells me my junk is hanging out of my hospital gown, and I say, if my balls are hanging out, that makes this a ball gown. Really helped with the tension. Haha. This is one of the funniest in the thread for me. Agreed. Simple, punny, and effective. I like it. In the early days of my surgical training, there was a day that I was written to a colonoscopy list. Standard practice is to premedicate patients in the anesthetic bay if required, particularly if they are a bit anxious about the procedure. I was clerking one of the patients in the anesthetic bay, going through consent and the usual pre-op routine, when I noticed that she was giving me these weird sidelong glances and that her eyes would dart away every time I tried to make eye contact with her. She was also extremely fidgety and was stammering a lot in her responses to my questions. I kind of shrugged it off as pre-operative nervousness and let the anesthetist do his business. Fast forward 10 minutes and I'm standing behind her. She curled up into the fetal position with her hanging out and I, colonoscope in hand. As the propofol starts rushing through her veins, she turns right around, grips my forearm and stares up at me with a dreamy look on her face and goes, "You know what, doc? I bet you kill it with the ladies." A moment later she was asleep and I was checking her colon for polyps. A moment later she was asleep and I was checking her colon for polyps. With the colonoscope? Anesthesiologist here. During recovery from general anesthesia, I called one of my patients by his full name in a loud voice. He opened his eyes, suddenly jumped upright and sit on the bed, and he said something. "Sir." "Yes sir." He was in the military service at that time. General anesthesia salute, said it, more respectful. For major surgery on his private parts, a colonoscopy. Not a doctor, but I was told by my dentist that when he was prepping me to remove my wisdom teeth, I asked him why he became a dentist. I vaguely remember him telling me a story about how, when he was a preteen, he was at a local pool, running around when he slipped and smashed his chin on concrete and shattered some of his teeth. Ouch. He was amazed at how well they reconstructed his teeth that he decided to go into dentistry. Apparently, I then looked this man in the eyes and said, well, that's a stupid fucking reason to become a dentist. Sorry. Drive. J. Had a patient come into recovery after surgery. She farted so long and loud the entire 20-bed unit heard her. Then she said I was trying to clear my throat. Excuse me, and I want a vanilla latte. I got a headache. As medical professionals, we had to hold in the laughter, but that didn't stop patients from turning into illness. Ha ha ha. Okay. I don't know how you guys didn't laugh. We are professionals. We are good at what we do, including saving our laughter for later during our lunch break. Another reason I could never be a doctor. Another reason I could never be an actor. I would laugh too much. I'm a doctor and was getting a knee reconstruction and asked one of my best friend's dad to do my anesthetic. He was head of department at the hospital I worked at the time. Apparently after he gave me the midazolam to chill time out and basically I forget everything from then on. He inserted a local anesthetic block into my leg. The next day he told me what happened. Apparently, I then told him it's not working and he should have done it higher up, and tried to grab the needle from him to show him. After I asked if he knew what he was doing, I also complained the bed was cold. We still have a good laugh about it. I'm preparing to salsa dance. Stand back everybody. There's nothing you can do to stop me. Somebody stop me. Narrator. Nobody stopped her. Apostrophe. Narrator. Nobody could stop her. Apostrophe. 65-year-old woman who had a wrist surgery. She was anxious, so they gave her a good whack of propofol, the milk of amnesia. Mid-surgery she was having the time of her life. In a thick Northern Irish accent she was like, did you just fill me up to me head with vodka? Jim a wee bit more boy. I'm loving this shit. Then she said the anesthetist looked like Freddie Mercury and started singing Don't Stop Me Now. The anesthetist looked nothing like Freddie. Mayo milk of amnesia. Woman woke up from surgery and said to her husband, David, that alarm clock has a nose and it's running. Wipe it. Honey, my name is Steven. No, it's David. When I was a toddler, my mom fell off our roof and broke her back. Apparently she was terrified she was going to become a vegetable, because after her back surgery she asked the nurse, am I a broccoli or a cauliflower? I laughed pretty hard. Hope she is okay now. The very first time I was in 3rd grade and was relatively scared. What kept me brave was the promise of Burger King breakfast afterwards. It was an early morning procedure that required fasting, and I rarely got fast food. They ended up running behind that day, so it was up in the air if I would wake up and get out in time to get my breakfast, which ended at 10. The first words out of my mouth were, what time is it? When my mom informed me it was already about 9:30, I tried to get out of bed and nearly ripped out my fourth in the process. When she tried to tell me that we would be late and I could get it another day, I promptly burst into tears. Edit. I did get my Burger King a different day. Thank you all for your concern. One of the times I had an endoscopy when I was around 10 years old, I woke up pretty groggy and naturally with a dry and sore throat. I asked the nurse for water, but she said I couldn't have any yet. She left the room, so I started climbing over the raised sides of the bed to get some. She walks back and with me almost at the point of no return. Also the point immediately preceding the point of face planting the floor, as I was in no state to be balancing or climbing. Freaks out screaming, what are you doing? So I say something along the lines of getting some water, and she relents and goes and gets me some. My sister had an endoscopy when she was about 4 and had been promised chocolate pudding when she woke up, and literally before her eyes opened, she slurred chocolate pudding. Not a medical professional, but my mom was coming out from under anesthesia after a procedure a few years ago, and I was trying to help her. She puckered her lips, so I picked up her water cup and asked if she wanted some. She turned her face toward me and said, do I look like an airplane? The nurses and I completely lost it. I still tease her about it sometimes. I'm a consultant anesthetist, UK, and there are loads. Often declarations of love from the patient as the drugs are kicking in. My all-time favorite is a 40-something guy a few years ago. He needed a testicle removing for cancer. He'd never had an anesthetic before and was super nervous. to the point of barely saying anything to anyone. As the drugs started to kick in, we realized someone was quietly singing. It was the patient. Hitler has only got one ball. Apostrophe. Goering has two but very small. Himmler is rather similar. But poor old Goebbels has no balls at all. I gave a kid methoxyflurane after he broke his arm. When we got to the hospital he went into the pediatric section of the ed and there were stickers on the wall of Sesame Street characters. He started talking about this unicorn on the wall. There wasn't one, and how it was trying to be friends with Elmo, but Elmo didn't want to be friends with him. His mum and I had a chuckle, and I had to pry the whistle out of his hands. Now tell us about the whistle. The whistle, which is green in my country, hence why the drug commonly known as the green whistle here, has a wick down the bottom. So we pour the methoxy into it, and you inhale the drug. Australia? I'm not sure if it's common anywhere else, but paramedics hand it out like candy over here. Yeah, they give him out for everything on that Bondi rescue show. Anesthesiologist told me that as I was going down, that I was describing my fingers feeling like French fries. But French fries, after you take them home and put them in microwave so they're soggy and not as good. Dislocated my shoulder in a way that my arm ended up stuck up over my head. Apparently, while all hopped up on Demerol I was laughing hysterically while the doctor was standing on the table/gurney wrestling with my arm to get it back into the socket. I don't remember a thing. Lucky you. When I was 11, the doc wrestled with my broken shin and they gave me nothing but paracetamol. Most of those fuckers must be sadists. I mean, why else would they choose a job like this? Orthopedic surgeons are a blend of powerlifters and doctors. You'll never see a small, weedy ortho. I have, but he was a hand surgeon. Small bones. AHH. A finger jockey. They don't think the same way as the face and body boys do. They're a different breed. Patient came into the ed as a trauma. Got ketamine sedation for an emergency procedure. I'm no. You're okay. We are taking care of you. I'm a ghost. Whoa. Wavy arm motions okay. Am I in hell? Breaking through on anesthesia. Crikey. This is a bad place. Jason figured it out. Oh. That hurt. That stings a little. I sat straight up in the bed, they tell me, and shouted I didn't ask for this. Then I turned to a nurse and pleaded, okay, ma'am? Yeah. Waking up to find half your body replaced with cybernetic parts is a bitch. Can't fault you. That's just how life is out on the rim. That I looked like a guy who worked for Bon Jovi. Ooh, oh, he's halfway there, wooho. A lemon and a pear. I can't hear this now. Like that triangle in Yeah by Usher. The most memorable funny one was a guy who sat bolt upright, mime rolling a cigarette and tuck it behind his ear saving it for back quote Ron. When I asked what he was doing, anesthesia can be a wild trip. The kids will always scream when they wake up. I woke up from my hysterectomy screaming in pain and begging them to make it stop. The nurse was freaked out. She was desperately trying to get meds into my fourth as fast as she could, only for me to have a hives response all over my face. I must be a kid at heart lol. Had a large skin graft and woke up absolutely consumed by pain. It was horrible. My parents were so freaked out. I always thought the nurse must have woken me up too early. I was so riddled with pain I became extremely apologetic, telling my parents I'm sorry for having cancer and this and that. It scared the living F out of me and my parents. To this day I've never felt pain like that before. Absolutely horrible. I can only imagine what other kids in my ward were thinking. That experience haunts me. I swear I have PTSD cause anytime someone has mentioned surgery I shake. Edit. Thank you kind stranger. I mean honestly, if you're having long-term effects from it, you might have PTSD. In which case, speaking from experience as someone with diagnosed medical related PTSD, a good trauma therapist does a world of help. A woman was absolutely distraught that she was going to be made to eat asparagus and was repeatedly telling us that she did not like asparagus, especially with eggs, and was politely rejecting the asparagus she thought we were constantly offering her. My brother had top surgery and woke up from being put under. My stepmom, whom I call mom, recorded him talking about how Abe Lincoln was a great guy. She asked him how he knew, and he replied with, "I knew him back in Nam." And that's the story of how my brother fought side by side with Abe Lincoln back in Vietnam. Sounds like quite the story.